Welcome to this week's edition of In the Clubhouse with EMD Baseball. I'm Andy Clubhouse with EMD Baseball. I'm Andy Kirikides, joined by my wonderful co-host as usual, Keith Glasser. How we doing?
Great. How are you?
Good. Today's topic is going to be relevant for a lot of kids who are in the middle of the recruiting process. Either currently you're 2025 and you've got some options, you got to make some decisions, or this is just generally good advice for anybody who's going to go through this process and you find yourself in a situation where you have to tell other schools that you're not going there, and how to do it, because we've both had guys handle this really well. And we've also been in the other side of it where you get a little bit pissed off to how it was handled. Before I pass it over to you, I do want to preface this statement with every coach gets told no. You're not telling a coach something he has never heard before. Every single one of us who's ever done this, we've had kids that we have fallen in love with as people, their families, and as players, and they call and they break your hearts because you think they're gonna go to school. We're not mad at you. Are there some coaches who act like douchebags when you tell them no? Yes. Don't worry about those guys. Didn't want to play for them anyways. But I'm going to pass it over to you to start the conversation of there is a proper way to do this, at least a way that I think me and you fully agree on. There's certain ways to go about this that are going to be received a lot more pleasantly rather than other potential options to do it. So what do you got for us?
Well, I guess we'll start with what not to do. The big one, I should say, the elephant in the room of what not to do, and then we'll get into kind of the things that we should do. The thing to not do is to hit the boards immediately and get on Twitter and announce that you're committed somewhere without telling the coaches that have spent time, energy, and effort on recruiting you personally. We're all on Twitter, and everybody who's coached has had this happen. And if you haven't, it's going to happen. And if you're paying attention to Twitter over the course of the next couple of weeks, you're likely going to see some coaches hit the boards and be like, finding out on Twitter and can't call. Like, it's the low hanging fruit. But it's one of the easiest things to kind of, make the end of the recruiting process for some schools, and in a lot of senses burn that bridge, because you don't have the respect, or you don't have the wherewithal to just make a 1 minute phone call and say, hey coach, I really appreciate everything you did for me. I appreciate you taking the time, showing me campus and talking me through all this stuff. Ultimately I decided that I'm going to X school. Again, thank you for everything. I'm so very appreciative. I just think that this is a better fit for me. You do that in, 10 seconds, 15 seconds? You do that, there's not a coach in the country. And if they are, again, to your point, like, you don't want to play for them anyways, like, they're going to be like, hey man, thanks for the phone call. I wish you the best. If anything changes in the future, feel free to give me a call and let me know. Now, if you don't do that and you just hit the boards and you post it on Twitter and Instagram and you don't call anyone, now you burn that bridge. And I'm not saying that that's, the be all end all, but, if it doesn't work out at the school you chose and then you want to circle back to those schools, you have an uphill battle because you can't communicate with them effectively enough to have that tough conversation that you're not going there. And they are tough conversations, but it sets you up for success in the future. You're going to have tough conversations when you get to college. You're going to be told you're not good enough. You're going to be told you have to work on certain things. You're going to be told no. There's a lot of things that are going to be tough in your future. And if you can start preparing for that, then it's going to set you up for success there. Because it's not just baseball, it's life. Like, you're going to have tough conversations in life as well. And the earlier that you can start to kind of handle those and be able to figure out how to navigate it, the better off you're going to be long run. Now, if a coach is, not nice about it, like, feel free to say something to your parents. Like, I'll be honest with you. If my son called a coach and said, like, hey, I'm not going there, I appreciate everything you did for me, and the guy wasn't nice about it, like, I'm on the phone immediately. Be like, yo, you have a 17-year-old kid who just called you and, thanked you for all your thing. And, like, you can't, like, who's the adult in the room here? Like, what are we doing? That's a message to coaches who do this. Like, yeah, man, I get it. It's a lot of time, energy, and effort, but you get told no quite a bit. Handle it like an adult. You're a coach. You're somebody who is supposed to impart wisdom on young men and have them teach them how to do this. And then you're going to get mad at a kid for doing it. What are we doing here? So like, again, like it's a very short conversation. Like every conversation I've ever had like that. And I can tell you, honestly, I've had hundreds of them. I don't know that I've had one that lasted more than 2 minutes. It's very quick. Hey, appreciate it. Hey man, I wish you the best of luck. I hate that you're going in conference because I have to see you 4 times. But hey, best of luck. Take it easy on us when you see us. If anything changes, let me know. Love to continue the conversation. But if not, I literally wish you the best of luck in everything it is that you do. And I truly mean that because it takes a lot for kids to be able to do that. But I also think it shows their maturity and how they're raised to be like, hey, I respect all the time and energy that you spent on me. But ultimately, I decided to go in a different direction. Awesome. Have at it. So make sure before you tweet out or put on Instagram that you're going somewhere, you covered the bases with the people who spent a lot of time with you. The flip side to it, if you had one conversation with somebody and that was it, like, you don't have to call them. If you want to, you can, but more the people who really spent a lot of time with you.
Yeah, I think you answered the thing that I was going to put in there is like, just do a basic inventory of, hey, I was on the phone with this guy once, or they emailed me 3 times, or like you don't really need to call those guys. But if you have a coach who's come and seen you play, you visited campus, they extended an offer, like whatever it might be, if you have any kind of relationship that's been formed with that coach and staff, default to picking up the phone. And I think it's important that we differentiate between text message and phone call. Mm-hmm. I think for me, it's cut and dry. It needs to be a phone call. I know text message is a much more accepted form of communication nowadays than it was when we were, playing and, for the bulk of our coaching careers. But still, I think a phone call goes a long way. To your point, it takes 2 minutes. That Twitter post can wait. If you commit on a Thursday and it takes you all weekend to track down your guys, like trust me, that wait until Monday is not going to hurt anybody. If you did a PBR event, they're still going to post it on your behalf. Like, don't worry about it. The other thing I would say is you never know who's going to coach you. Like, you don't know where guys are going to go. And I think that's the only thing that I would add to what you said is that the other reason to be respectful, besides the fact that you should just be respectful and thoughtful and understand that those coaches put a ton of time into trying to recruit you. But most of the time you're going to be calling assistant coaches. Assistant coaches move around a lot. And you don't know if that guy ends up in your program someday, or you end up in the transfer portal, or you get, it's just not a good fit and you end up trying to find another place. Don't burn a bridge that you don't have to burn if all it takes is a 2-minute phone call. Like, you just don't know. And coaches talk, right? We all know each other. It's a reason that we know as many people as we do is because coaches call coaches on guys all the time. So that it's kind of a brotherhood in that sense. And it coaches talk, and you just want to make sure you handle yourself the correct way. And a simple phone call shouldn't be that big of a deal. But do it the right way, whether you're 25 going through it now or you're a 26 who's going to go through it, or if you're 27 listening to this, just be mindful of how you communicate with people and be respectful. Because it goes a long way. And that goes for schools that reach out to you that you're not interested in. I would default to be interested in everybody until you really narrow down. But like, if there's an obvious place that is just not going to be a fit for you, like you want to go to a school in the Northeast and you're a really high academic kid and you get a call from a state school in Ohio and you just don't have any interest in that place. Yeah, just respectfully tell them, hey, coach, right now I'm looking at some other schools. Like, you don't have to string people along, and you can say no respectfully. To your point, we've all been told no. I've probably been told no more than I've been told yes over the course of the coaching career. Like, you bring in 10, I've had way more than 100 kids say no to me, and it probably, over 10 years, probably recruited 125 kids or something like that, ballpark. So we get way more no's than we get yeses. So let's be thoughtful about that. That's really all I got.
Yeah, I think the other thing too, and I'll add this, like I agree that the text, like you shouldn't do it via text. But what you can do, and this happens quite frequently, is just you can text the coach and be like, hey, coach, do you have a couple minutes to talk? Like they know what's coming. Whether or not it's going to be good or bad, like they're going to be a little anxious about, but like they know that you're calling to either commit or tell them no. And that conversation is going to go very quickly if it's a no. If it's a yes, it's going to be like, hey, awesome, like super fired up. And honestly, it's probably going to be maybe a minute longer of like, hey, these are the next steps. It's October. So, you still like, I'll follow up with you next week about, the early decision process. And then, it's kind of a little bit of a waiting game till you get your acceptance and deposit and then housing and all that stuff. And we'll work through that as we go. And that's going to be the gist of the conversation. When it's a no, it's like, hey, man, really appreciate you giving me the call and let me know. Wish you the best of luck. And let me know if anything changes, now or, in 2 months or in 2 years. Doesn't matter. Awesome. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you later. Like it's that quick. And, if you're anxious or nervous about it, like, yeah, send them a text and be like, hey, coach, do you have a couple minutes to talk tonight? Like, yeah, man, gotcha. And make the phone call. You're going to be done. That whole exchange is going to be less than 5 minutes. I can promise you it's less than 5 minutes. So that's the only thing I would add to it. Like if you're a little nervous about it, like, hey, coach, do you have a couple minutes to talk? Like they're going to know what's coming. It's going to they know it's a yes or a no. And that conversation is going to go very quickly. And it's tough. It is. But, like we tell our people all the time, like our goal is to get you to say no more than you're going to say yes. Ultimately, we want you to say yes once. So, you're going to have those conversations with people where it's like, hey, I appreciate it. But, ultimately I decided to go somewhere else.
The anxiety of the call is way worse than the call itself. Much like a lot of things in life is that you work yourself up to this is going to be some horrific phone call. And then the coach is like, yeah, man, appreciate it. You're an awesome player. Best of luck to you. And you move on. So, anything else you want to add, Coach?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. We will talk to you next week. Thank you for listening this week. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and smash that like button for us. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at EMD Baseball. If you want to find out what me and Keith do to help families and players navigate the recruiting process, go ahead and check us out on emdbaseball.com. Take a few minutes to check out our new online academy. I promise you'll get some good information out of that. Thanks again for listening. Check in with you next week.